Strange secrets of Persepolis you may not know. Imagine. More than 2,500 years ago, in a land that is now known as Iran, a city was built to display the glory of one of the greatest empires in the world. A city with massive columns, magnificent palaces, incredibly detailed reliefs, and stones that still tell the story of the people who lived there centuries ago. The name of this city was Persepolis. But Persepolis was more than just a collection of stone palaces. Among these columns and carvings are secrets and fascinating details that you may have never heard about. Today, we're going to explore some of the strangest mysteries and facts about Persepolis. Secret 1. Persepolis wasn't built in a single day. When we look at Persepolis, we might imagine that one king simply ordered its construction and thousands of workers immediately began building a massive city. But the reality is much more interesting. The construction of Persepolis began under one ruler and was continued by later generations. The complex was most likely started during the reign of Darius the Great and continued under kings such as Xerxes and Artaxerxes I. This means Persepolis was not the achievement of a single generation. It was a massive project that continued for several decades. Each king added new structures and features, and eventually, a magnificent complex took shape. Secret 2. The reliefs of Persepolis were not just decorations. If you look closely at the reliefs of Persepolis, you will see people walking in carefully organized lines. People from different lands. Many of them are shown wearing different clothes and having different appearances, yet they are portrayed in a calm and orderly way. Why? Because these images were probably more than simple decorations. They presented an image of the Achaemenid Empire, a vast empire that included people from many different regions. In fact, the walls of Persepolis may have served as a kind of political message. Many different lands were united under one great empire. Secret 3. Nobody took a photograph at Persepolis. Of course, we don't mean a real photograph. But if you look carefully at the reliefs, you'll notice something very interesting. Kings and ordinary people are usually represented according to a very specific artistic style. Their faces are calm and formal. There is almost no sign of strong emotions such as anger, fear, or chaos. And this was not an accident. Achaemenid artists were not trying to capture ordinary moments from everyday life. They wanted to create an ideal image of order, power, and royal greatness. That's why Persepolis looks more like an official portrait of power than a photograph of everyday life. Secret 4. Persepolis contains many ancient inscriptions. One of the most important things that makes Persepolis so valuable to historians is its inscriptions. In different parts of the complex, inscriptions written in ancient languages have been discovered. For example, some inscriptions record the names of Darius and Xerxes. This means Persepolis isn't simply an ancient monument. The buildings themselves are like a massive historical document. Secret 5. The workers at Persepolis were not slaves? Here's one of the most fascinating parts of the story. For many years, there was a common belief that massive ancient monuments were built entirely by slaves. But the evidence discovered at Persepolis tells us a more complicated story. Clay tablets found at Persepolis contain information about food rations and payments given to different groups of workers. This tells us that at least some of the workers were part of an organized labor system and received rations. So the story of how Persepolis was built is much more complicated than the simple image of thousands of slaves building a palace. Secret 6. Persepolis wasn't an ordinary city. When we hear the name Persepolis, we might imagine a city where large numbers of ordinary people lived. But the complex was primarily a royal and ceremonial center. It contained palaces, halls, administrative spaces, and royal buildings. One of its most famous structures is the 100 Columns Hall. Another is the Apadana, one of the most magnificent buildings in the complex, which likely played an important role in official ceremonies and royal receptions. So Persepolis was more like the ceremonial and symbolic heart of the empire than an ordinary city like the cities we know today. And now we come to one of the greatest mysteries in the history of Persepolis. In 330 BCE, the army of Alexander the Great reached Persepolis. After the fall of the Achaemenid Empire, parts of the complex were burned. But the exact details of what happened are still debated. Was the fire completely intentional? Did part of it happen during a celebration or feast? Or was it a political decision to destroy a powerful symbol of the Achaemenid Empire? Ancient sources give different accounts. That's why we cannot say with complete certainty exactly what happened. But the result was clear. Parts of Persepolis were destroyed by fire, and the complex never regained its former glory. Secret 8. Why is Persepolis still standing? A large part of Persepolis's incredible appearance comes from its massive stone structures. But it wasn't just the size of the stones that mattered. Achaemenid engineers and architects were highly skilled at cutting, placing, and connecting massive blocks of stone. In some parts of the complex, the stones were fitted together with remarkable precision. And that precision helped parts of the structure survive for more than 2,000 years. Of course, earthquakes, erosion, fire, and the passage of time have caused enormous damage. But what remains is still astonishing. Maybe the most fascinating mystery of Persepolis isn't how it was built. Maybe it's why it was built. A vast empire existed. Many different lands were under its rule. But instead of showing their power only through armies, the Achaemenid kings also displayed their power through architecture. The columns, palaces, reliefs, and inscriptions all carried a message. This empire is great. It is organized. And it brings people from many different lands together. Persepolis is not simply a collection of ancient stones. It is a message that has survived for more than 2,000 years. A message about power, politics, art, and a civilization that once influenced a huge part of the known world. And perhaps that's exactly what has kept Persepolis alive to this day. Every column we see, every carving that remains on the stone, and every inscription that can still be read, is part of the story of people who lived more than 2,000 years ago. But even today, we still have questions about them. And perhaps some of the secrets of Persepolis will remain unsolved forever.